The way to become free from the simulation is to meditate. I've always been fascinated by the idea that our world might be some kind of orchestrated illusion, a matrix or simulation that appears to exist only because our consciousness decodes it into reality. It's a compelling notion, one that has parallels in ancient philosophies, religious teachings, and the more modern concept of us living in a giant computer simulation. But as wild as it sounds, the essence of the argument is this: what we call reality takes form in our collective minds, and without our minds, it can't take shape at all. This isn't about each of us personally conjuring everything we see, nor is it about claiming we single-handedly create physical space with our thoughts. Rather, it's that we interpret or decode a deeper underlying field of potential into the sensory tapestry we call everyday life. In that sense, our entire experience is akin to a collectively induced dream, an elaborate illusion that feels palpably real while we're immersed in it. There's a Gnostic perspective, tracing back thousands of years, that frames our world as a construct of a distorted consciousness named Yaldabaoth. In Christian terminology, you might equate this figure with Satan. According to that lineage of thought, Yaldabaoth is the architect of our flawed, chaotic world, a false god who spun an illusory realm that's incomplete or twisted, leading to the madness and darkness we so often witness. The point is, the so-called insanity of the world isn't random. It's designed by this illusory architect to function that way. Now, whether or not you take that Gnostic interpretation literally, the underlying principle stands. The physical or real universe that we navigate is inseparable from consciousness itself. Or put another way, if we didn't show up to observe and decode it, there'd be no reality to perceive. Consciousness is the fundamental core from which this entire simulation springs forth. And yes, the word consciousness can be tricky. Some people say awareness. Others say spirit. But however you label it, it's that unchanging, ever-present sense of being that stands behind every thought and sensation. So where does meditation come in? Meditation, at its simplest, is the practice of sitting quietly, watching the thoughts that float through your mind, and noticing how they come and go. You're not forced to do anything with them. You're not trying to fix or judge them. You just allow them to arise and disappear. We often go through life with an uninterrupted stream of thoughts, judgments, memories, future plans, anxieties. All these mental narratives swirl around, keeping our minds perpetually busy. But when you purposefully sit and do nothing, truly nothing except be aware, a curious thing happens. Over time, the torrent of thoughts slows down. Gaps begin to appear between them. Brief moments where no thought occupies your mind. In those intervals of stillness, you catch a glimpse of something more profound. Your raw consciousness, the vantage point behind it all. This perspective is said to be beyond the grasp of the matrix or simulation because it's not part of the mental or perceptual illusions. It's the silent witness that sees illusions without being fooled by them. If the theory is that our decoding of reality is what sustains this shared dream, then every moment spent resting in pure awareness erodes that dream's dominion over us. The more you deepen those thought-free gaps, the more you wake up to the fact that you aren't just a character inside a strange cosmic video game. You're the awareness to which the entire show is presented. In a way, you realize you're not really an avatar under the Matrix control. You're the observer. And if you're the observer, the Matrix has less and less power to hypnotize you with illusions. Meditation, then, isn't about self-improvement or relaxation alone, though it often yields those benefits. It's more about recognizing the break between the endless chatter of mind and the quiet presence that remains when chatter ceases. That presence, or pure being, is, in many spiritual traditions, the ultimate truth, or at least it's a direct conduit to that truth. When you identify with that silent presence, you step outside the labyrinth of illusions, or at least see them for what they are, fleeting constructs in consciousness. It might sound lofty, but the practice is disarmingly straightforward. You find a calm place to sit, maybe cross-legged on the floor or upright in a chair, and let yourself become still. Thoughts will parade in, "What about dinner? I'm bored. This is silly. My leg itches." But each time you notice you're caught in a thought, you gently bring yourself back to noticing the present moment. Over time, those mental intrusions quiet, leaving empty spaces. The more you do this daily, even for just a few minutes at first, the easier it is to rest in that state of stillness longer. Some might question, but if consciousness decodes reality, then how do we keep living in the world once we see it's not the ultimate truth? The answer from many contemplative paths is that you continue to function, But with a new sense of freedom, you might still see the illusions, but they lose their total grip on you. This is often described as living in the world, but not being of it. You fulfill your normal responsibilities: work, relationships, creativity, chores, except now are no longer overshadowed by the sense that the world is an absolute prison. You do them more lightly, with more presence. What about Yaldabaoth, or the demonic or negative intelligence that might be controlling the simulation from the Gnostic viewpoint? The logic goes that as soon as you discover your real identity as the pure observer, you deprive this negative force of its power. The illusions thrive on fear, division, and the sense that you're just a helpless occupant in a chaotic domain. By seeing that you are the awareness behind it all, you essentially pull the plug on the illusion's ability to fully manipulate you. That doesn't mean every difficulty magically disappears, but you see them for what they are: ephemeral mental or energetic events rather than insurmountable realities. Is it possible to break free from the simulation altogether? The deeper spiritual traditions, from Gnosticism to Buddhism to non-dual teachings, suggest that yes, but not through mental speculation alone. It's through direct experiential insight that arises in extended states of meditative awareness or contemplation. Some might experience glimpses in near-death episodes, or in spontaneous moments of transcendence, or through psycho-spiritual technologies. But the stable approach is consistent meditation, reconnecting with that dimensionless presence day after day, letting it grow stronger than the illusions. So is that all there is to do? Just sit quietly? In a way, yes. The mind likes complicated instructions, but meditation's real essence is less about technique and more about letting go. Observing your mind means noticing how your mental states shift: frustration, calm, itchiness, relief, and seeing that none of those states are you. The real you is the seer behind them. With practice, you'll sense that your awareness doesn't come and go, but thoughts do. This is a radical shift because we usually live as though we're our thoughts, bouncing from one to the next. Moreover, the power of collective illusions lies in unexamined mind patterns. If enough people accept a certain narrative or worldview, it becomes real enough to shape societies, laws, and histories. But from a vantage of deeper stillness, you can see how these narratives form, crumble, and reform, sometimes in ways that seem almost dreamlike or absurd. That doesn't mean you become passive or uncaring. Actually, many who awaken to pure consciousness become more compassionate, because they see we're all entangled in the same illusions, striving for clarity and ease. This perspective also explains why so many spiritual teachings emphasize the necessity of direct experience rather than intellectual knowledge. You can read hundreds of books about how the world might be a mental construct or watch endless videos about simulation theory, but nothing changes until you experience that silent gap for yourself, that intangible but unmistakable recognition of I am. That's the moment that can't be fully explained in words but resonates in your very being. Hence the repeated advice: if you want freedom from the matrix, carve out some time every day to do absolutely nothing. At first, it's surprisingly hard. The mind is used to being busy, scrolling, planning, ruminating. But with consistent practice, you'll find pockets of stillness increasing. And in those pockets, you'll realize your mind has been on autopilot more often than not. The more you snap out of that autopilot, the more you inhabit the real you, awareness. You might see changes in daily life. You could become less reactive, more patient, more content with simplicity. External circumstances may or may not transform drastically, but your relationship to them often does. Challenges remain, but they're no longer tinted with the same existential heaviness. And ironically, as you let go of chasing illusions, you might find you navigate life's practical matters more effectively, because you're operating from clarity, not from fear or compulsion. None of this is meant to say, the world isn't real, so ignore it. On the contrary, you can still engage with it. Just know that behind the stage set of everyday phenomena is a deeper presence. The Gnostics recognized it millennia ago. Buddhists call it the luminous mind or emptiness. Indian sages call it the Atman or Brahman. Different labels, same essential pointer. You are not the puppet of the illusions, you are the awareness. If you find yourself resonating with these ideas, the best step isn't to dissect them intellectually, but to sit in silence for a few minutes. Watch your breath, watch your thoughts. If you drift into fantasies or analysis, gently come back. Over days and weeks, you'll see the mind's antics more clearly, and you'll glimpse the silent witness that was there all along. That's the gateway to freedom from the matrix. Realizing the illusions can't claim you if you know you're the one watching them.